AJ Dybantsa.
AJ going baseline.
Cayden Boozer.
Jumper. I can see why Danny Hurley is really excited about getting him on campus. Boozer, a chance.
Darryn Peterson.
Good early screen.
The top of the 2026 NBA draft is stacked, and this year's draft cycle is about to begin. International leagues such as the NBL are right around the corner, and the NCAA season is less than 60 days away. What's going on, guys? Wilco here. The 2026 NBA draft class looks incredibly interesting, so let's break it down. As I said, we're working with a clear big three. It's tough to nitpick incoming Kansas freshman Darryn Peterson, who averaged 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists as a high school senior. He was a McDonald's All-American, and sure, some other honors probably didn't go his way because of hoop politics, but make no mistake about Darryn's talent level. Peterson is a definite contender to go number 1 overall. That's where mainstream outlets such as ESPN or No Ceilings have him ranked right now, but I'll have him at number 3 to start this cycle. Peterson glides into the paint. He gets to his spots effectively, breaking down defenders off the dribble to score at the basket and off the bounce. Once he gets downhill, which Peterson is almost always doing despite not necessarily being super twitchy, I love his decision making. Peterson can score, pass, and he also draws a lot of fouls. In fact, I get the comparisons to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but for now, I see him as closer to Damian Lillard. Darryn is awesome, so why is he at 3? Well, I'll stress that this is not a knock on Peterson at all. All 3 of these guys are in the same tier and it's splitting hairs right now. But he's not as efficient, and I don't think that he'll be as dominant as Boozer and Dybantsa. Plus, he's smaller at around 6'5", 6'6", which is fine. I just tend to prefer larger players at number 1. I've covered first-year Duke forward Cayden Boozer plenty on the channel so far, so I'll keep it brief. But I've called him a contender for the best prospect in the world before for a reason. Like with Darryn Peterson, Boozer's game is difficult to pick apart. His resume, until now, is almost impeccable. To give you an idea of Boozer's dominance, he averaged 22 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3.5 stocks per game last season. Cam is awesome and polished. He's continued to steady his perimeter game, and he can now regularly put the ball on the floor to create his own shot from 2 and from 3. On defense, Boozer has been great so far. He's really physical and he reads the game quickly. I'm convinced that Cam will still be a very good defender going forward, but I have minor questions still about his flexibility, twitchiness, and bounce. Plus, Cam just isn't that big for a 5. Don't get me wrong, Boozer is not a tweener. He's an incredibly skilled front court player who is guaranteed to add two-way value. But part of me wonders whether he'll be a 4 and a 3 in the NBA, or if he'll be a 4 and a 5. This applies on both ends, and this season it'll be interesting to see Jon Scheyer use Boozer similarly to Cooper Flagg. AJ Dybantsa is number 1 on my board to start the 2026 draft cycle. I'll have a full big board out pretty soon before the college season starts, so stay tuned for that. But my pitch on AJ is pretty simple. Dybantsa is an exceptional athlete who can dribble, pass, and shoot. At times, the BYU freshman reminds me of Giannis with his length and ground coverage, but also Jimmy Butler with his physicality and stubbornness. AJ's hype kinda went down after a slightly underwhelming senior year at Utah Prep, but the circumstances there and schedule weren't ideal for his development. At BYU, I expect that to change under Kevin Young. I want the Cougars to use Dybantsa as a do-it-all point wing because I really think that he is capable of making most reads as a scorer and as a playmaker. I'm a true believer in AJ's progress as a passer, but now that he's starting at BYU, he's going to have to demonstrate that it will carry up a level. On that note, I also want Dybantsa to be more consistent and productive on defense. On that end, he adds the least value of the big three, and his motor fluctuates a bit too much. Nate Ament will be number 4 on my preseason big board. My first time watching Ament in person was at the McDonald's All-American Games a few months ago, and I was incredibly intrigued and captivated. The Tennessee wing, much like the big three, can also dribble, pass, and shoot. Right now, Ament's jumper might be his biggest or most well-known selling point. The 18-year-old can get into his pull-up over most defenders out of 1 or 2 dribbles. Ament is 6'9" with a 6'11" wingspan after a huge growth spurt in recent years, so now he's sized like a wing. He's not super long, but still he can just shoot over the top. But while Ament is most known for his scoring, I really like the reads that he makes as a passer as well. Watching him at the high school level, where he was by far the best player on his team, was eye-opening. Ament made his teammates better and executed tough reads in a variety of ways, be that in transition, out of the pick and roll, or creating his own drives to touch the paint and kick the ball out. Frankly, these were some advanced passes that he was making. I'm not sure that we'll see this at Tennessee, but it's worth keeping in mind. At this juncture, I don't see anyone falling out of that big three, but if anyone did, Ament would be my favorite to slide in. My biggest question surrounding his game is his strength. Ament is tough, but finishing at the rim can still be a struggle. He also finds it hard to stay rooted to his spots sometimes. When teams put smaller defenders on Ament, he can't seal them off, and going forward, teams are probably going to stick guards on him to test out if he's a true mismatch. Then, defensively, Ament is going to have to guard wings a whole lot more going forward, which he hasn't really done that much. Caleb Wilson won't leave my top 7, and he might even be in my top 5. I'm thinking something like Jonathan Isaac for the type of player that Wilson can become, but more so Isaac when he was at Florida State. Back then, he wasn't quote-unquote only a defender. I expect that Wilson will make most of his money on that side of the basketball as well, but in reality, he can do much more than defend. This was especially apparent throughout Wilson's senior year in Georgia, where I thought that he really expanded his offensive repertoire. He was doing a lot more passing, some dribbling, and he was showing much greater comfort shooting. Then, on defense, Wilson is a really valuable off-ball defender. That's exactly what NBA teams look for nowadays. Wilson is a very decent athlete with great size and length, plus his frame is filling out nicely. What worries me the most actually isn't anything about his game, rather it's that he's going to North Carolina. We saw what happened with Drake Powell last year, but there are other recent examples as well of guys who go to UNC and see their stocks plummet. I can easily picture a scenario already in which Wilson, like Powell, gets no usage at all and is played in what's virtually a defense-only capacity for the entire year. Mikel Brown Jr. might be my biggest question mark entering the 2026 draft cycle. I liked him at Overtime Elite, but overall, I was never super high on Brown throughout his high school career. Frankly, I thought that he didn't have the required body and athleticism to survive at a higher level. A couple years ago, Brown was listed at 6'1". At one point, he weighed around 140 pounds. But now, as he enters his freshman season at Louisville, the Cardinals last measured him at 6'5", 180 pounds with a 6'7" wingspan. Looking towards the future, Brown profiles as a combo guard with pretty solid positional size, and now he has an athletic package that is really blossoming. Focusing on his skill set, I buy the Louisville prospect's ball handling and shooting in particular. Both of those tools are linked, and Brown can both get past his man and also create separation into a jumper. Thinking about this season, I'm most interested in how Brown will finish at the basket. I think he's going to get into the paint a whole lot, but that final decision will be key, and not just as a scorer. I've never been sold on Mikel as a passer or as a quick decision maker. He's not bad, but I just think he's okay, so I'll be focused to see if he makes a leap there as well. Bennett Stirtz is my top returner in this draft class, and he'll feature around the top 10 of my preseason big board. It's simple, really. I consider Stirtz to be an amazing playmaker who doesn't lose the ball. He plays a ton of minutes, right around, I believe, 98% of Drake's minutes last season, and then he capably creates for himself and others. Frankly, I would have picked Stirtz in the first round out of Drake last year, but now he's at Iowa this season, surrounded by a much better team. Given how much I buy Sturtz's passing already, I'm thinking about his scoring when it comes to 2026. Namely, I want to see a bit more scalability off the ball. Now, I'm not suggesting shifting an amazing point guard away from the rock, but in today's NBA, it's tough to be a ball-dominant point guard. If Stirtz can toggle on and off the ball more, that would make him an easier fit across more rosters and lineups. Then, I also want to see how his production will hold up now that Division I teams are very familiar with him and will highlight him on their scouting reports before every game this season. Cayden Boozer is widely underrated as we enter this draft cycle. Maybe it's that his brother, Cam Boozer, is so good that Cayden sometimes slips under the radar, but he has a lot of what NBA teams look for nowadays in guards. Cayden is a very safe ball handler and a measured facilitator. He sets his team up and creates good shots for others game round, although he's not some mind-blowing passer. What I like the most about the Duke freshman's decision-making is how quick it is. Whether it's in the pick and roll or in the open court, Boozer never pounds the air out of the ball. He pushes the tempo, plays with his head up to find others while having decent positional size, and he's very unselfish, almost always trying to make the right read. Sometimes this can be to a fault, so Cayden needs to be careful to not become a pass-first guard with little to no scoring gravity. What I'm saying is that he needs to stay aggressive. Boozer doesn't create much for himself, but he'll still need to take and knock down his spot-up threes. He'll need to attack closeouts assertively. He'll need to keep making timely cuts. And overall, he needs to take whatever defenses give him. Usually, in Cayden's case, that will mean leveraging the attention that a more dominant scorer on his own team generates. Tounde Yessoufou is a mind-blowing athlete who wants to break the rim whenever he throws down a huge dunk in transition. I've been scouting the rising Baylor freshman since September of 2022. And even back then, he was unstoppable in a straight line and in the open court. All of that still holds, so I get why Yessoufou is getting a lot of preseason hype. He might be the twitchiest, most explosive player in this class, and he's built like a running back. Baylor actually is a good destination in my opinion. I see some similarities between Tounde and VJ Edgecombe. However, I'll stress that these are pretty slight. VJ was much more polished as a shooter, ball handler, and decision maker before his freshman season. On a similar note, that's also why I cannot get behind comparisons to Anthony Edwards. Right now, I'm not sure that Yessoufou has much versatility to his game when he can't put his head down and attack the paint. My biggest concern surrounding Tounde is if he ends up having the skill set of a 4 in the body of a 2. Karim Lopez is one of the ball handling wings in this draft class who really piques my interest. The 18-year-old Mexican prospect already played 1 season of the NBL Next Stars program with the New Zealand Breakers. That was last year when he averaged about 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist while drilling roughly 31% of his threes. In his second season down under, that is what Lopez needs to build on. Looking ahead, I want to see some improvements from 3 in particular, plus he'll have to keep getting stronger, but honestly, that's sort of amplified against NBL competition in a way that maybe wouldn't exist for Lopez in college. Overall, I buy Lopez's level of skill and across-the-board production, so if nothing goes wrong, he'll become the first Mexican-born first-rounder, which honestly might be understating it. Neoklis Avdalas was good enough to get drafted in 2025, however, he hadn't done enough to secure a first-round spot. We saw him play at the draft combine, we saw him play in Europe, in Greece last season. Now, Avdalas is off to Virginia Tech, and I think that the Greek prospect made the correct decision. Avdalas will get a lot more eyes on him in the NCAA than he would have by staying in Greece. That's without mentioning that Neo will probably also see a huge increase in minutes. In turn, that will lead to more production and hopefully a much improved stock. Like many of the prospects in this video, because this is what I look for in prospects nowadays, Avdalas can dribble, pass, and shoot to some extent. However, I think that he's a better playmaker when he's acting as a connector rather than as a lead. This upcoming season, the crucial test for Avdalas will be adapting quickly to American basketball. If this happens, then I think he'll follow in the footsteps of Yegor Demin or Kasparas Yakuchonis, and we'll hear Neoklis Avdalas' name called around the lottery. Sergio de Larrea is sticking in Spain, and he's bucking the trend in college basketball by sticking with Valencia. The 6'6" playmaker averaged about 6 points, 2 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game last season. Obviously, those numbers seem tiny, but keep in mind that he was averaging just 12 minutes a night. De Larrea needs more minutes this season, and he's on a loaded Valencia roster, so it will speak volumes if he can secure them. In general though, I really like De Larrea's playmaking and passing reads a lot. He has very good vision in the pick and roll, and he can also add value in transition. Again though, De Larrea is another ball handling prospect who needs to remain aggressive as a scorer in order to keep the rest of his game unlocked. Lately, I've enjoyed how many threes he's been taking. That volume needs to stay, but that's also because he cannot create for himself. Showing more self-creation with an improved scoring punch would boost De Larrea's stock big time. Otherwise, he reminds me of Keyshawn George when he played for Miami. Welcome back to Floor and Ceiling. For those who are new to the channel, welcome to Season 6. I'm very excited for this season. I think it's going to be a great draft cycle. So I'm going to get us started with a few videos here, a couple introduction videos to go along with this one. I'll break down the best bigs in the class. I'll also mention some international sleepers. And then right after that, I'll start us off with our preseason scouting videos. As always, thank you so much for your support, guys. Make sure to join and subscribe to the Floor and Ceiling Substack. There will be plenty of content there, everything that you can find on the channel, but we'll be going above and beyond just as we did last year to bring you plenty of written scouting reports and much more. As always, once again, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.